Welcome to the Prince George's County Good Samaritan Awards Program reception. I am Musa Eubanks, Director of the Office of Community Relations for Prince George's County. It is my pleasure to host a ceremony to celebrate the great acts of humanity and heroism by 11 Prince Georgians. The Good Samaritan Awards program began in 2007 to recognize citizens and residents who demonstrated an act of kindness or provided critical assistance to an individual. The awardees are nominated to receive this recognition by those who they've assisted or someone who is aware of their act of generosity or heroism. We appreciate the presence of our award recipients, their families, their sponsors and friends, as well as several members of the Baker administration and elected officials. I'd like to take a moment to recognize those persons. When I call your name, please stand or wave. Of course, our County Executive, Rushern L. Baker III, the Chief of Staff, Glenda Wilson, Fire Chief Bashore, DCO Barry Stanton, DCO Carla Reed, and DCO Tom Himmler. And in the back we have Delegate Michael Summers, and Delegate Summers, along with Leslie Graves, are here representing Angela Alsobrooks from the State's Attorney's Office. So we thank you all for being here. And again, thank you all for taking the time to celebrate with us today. Now I'm honored to introduce the person who's going to speak to you next, the County Executive Rushern L. Baker III. He's going to bring you greetings and recognize our award recipients. Mr. Baker.
Well, first of all, I want to welcome everyone here today. It's great to see you out. And thank you for the hard work that you've done for the people in Prince George's County. It's interesting, when I saw this award on my schedule, I thought it was in response to an email that I sent to our Chief of Staff and others, and that is a couple of days ago, or a couple of weeks ago, I was shopping, and I had my checkbook in my pocket, and it dropped out, but I didn't realize it had dropped out. I just thought I lost it, and so I was scrambling around the house trying to find this checkbook, and finally just said, well, hopefully I lost it somewhere in the house. Then a couple of days ago, I got a letter, quite thick, from an address I didn't know, and I said, well, at first I, thought it was maybe like some random mail, and I started to just toss it away. But luckily, I opened it, and inside was my checkbook with a note that said, I found this. You must have dropped it, and I'm returning it to you because I don't want you to be worried that somebody had taken your checkbook and was out there writing checks. And it made me feel so good that people would actually do that, take the time to make sure an item, because they could have thrown it away, could have used it, could have done anything. But so that I wouldn't worry about what was going on, they sent it to me. And that reminded me, and I sent our Chief of Staff and my Special Assistant a note and said, can we just write this Good Samaritan a note and say thank you? That's what we're doing today. We're writing you a note and saying thank you because of your work, unsung work, that a lot of times go unnoticed. We want you to know that we notice it. The final remarks I will make is that when I ran for this office, one of the things that the campaign consultant and I talked about was why. Why do you want to be county executive? And I listed all the great things that I could do as county executive. And he said, tell me which one of those things can't you do as a resident and citizen of Prince George's County? And I couldn't think of any. His point to me was, you want to run for the office so you can do good, but you don't need the office to do good. You can do good right now. It might be helpful if you start doing good in your work in the community and then run for office. And it's what I did. And at least I tried to do it by running a nonprofit and trying to expand K through 12 education reform. You are doing good, and that's what we're here to celebrate. You're a great example of what I want my young adults in my household to be like, and what we want them to do, and what we want this county to be about. And so I'm here to say thank you on behalf of the county, and we look forward to giving you these nice awards as a small token to let you know that we know the work you're doing and we appreciate it. Thank you.
Now DCAO Barry Stanton.
Good afternoon, everyone. I have the luxury of reading the outstanding work everyone has done for receiving this award. So if the county executive can come back up.
Gladly.
The first award, the Temple Hills House Fire at the Musa residence, says on February 19th, 2012, the family home for over 50 years of James and Donna Musa caught on fire. The fire spread rapidly to the top of the floor of their third-story townhome. At approximately 8:15 p.m., a 911 call was made by Donna Musa to report her house was on fire and that her husband, James Musa, was trapped on the third floor. Time was of the essence, as Mr. Musa, who has limited mobility and utilizes a walker and an electric wheelchair, was trapped. In fact, Chris Musa, Donna and James' son, had recently moved back home to help care for the parents. The fire started in Chris's bedroom on the third floor, which is located in the middle of the two other bedrooms. As Chris attempted to put the fire out, he broke a window and managed to yell for help. After breaking the window with his hand, Chris sustained severe lacerations and fourth-degree burns. The fire spread so rapidly, Chris was unable to do any more. Due to the pain of his hands burning, doctors believe that he went into shock and could be heard on 911 call screaming, "Help," over and over again. Meanwhile, Ms. Musa, who happened to be recovering from a previous near-fatal fall last November, where she broke every bone in her face and sustained compound fractures to both her arms, sustained no injury in this fire. Understandably, Ms. Musa could have fled the house immediately. Instead, she remained by the side of her husband for 59 years. That's amazing. Even after the 911 dispatcher directed her to leave the house, she stayed beside her husband. The 911 dispatcher advised that the fire department was on the way. Ms. Musa and Chris, as a result of their individual hand injuries, were unable to unlock the deadbolt on their front door. Ms. Vanessa Ward, whose home is attached to the Musa's townhome, made a 911 call as well. Vanessa and her father, Gene Ward, have been neighbors to the Musa family for 10 years. While Vanessa was on the phone with 911, Mr. Gene Ward attempted to gain entry through the front door of the Musa's house. However, his first attempt was unsuccessful due to the deadbolt on the door. He then advised Ms. Musa and Chris to step back as he attempted to kick the door down. After several attempts, he finally was able to gain entry. Ms. Musa then advised Jean that her husband remained trapped upstairs, Jean ran to the steps and saw Mr. Musa standing at the top of the stairs, his body literally surrounded by flames and in shock. Jean ran up the stairs and said, "Come on, Mr. Jim, we got to go. Come on, Mr. Jim, we got to go." However, Mr. Musa remained in shock and he could not move. Jean repeated himself with the same results. Jean realized that if we were going to get out alive, he would have to move Mr. Musa's body for himself. Jean manually moved Mr. Musa's legs one by one. He was able to get down a few stairs, but the fire and the heat became too much to handle. Jean then sat Mr. Musa down and pulled him by his ankles until they reached the bottom of the stairs. Jean turned around to find another neighbor, Demetrius D. Handon, there to help. Jean, exhausted from this not-so-easy task of getting Mr. Musa down the steps, welcomed these assistants. Both men were able to get Mr. Musa outside and across the street. It took 8 adults to carry Mr. Musa across the street. Some of these Good Samaritan neighbors are still unknown to the Musa family. As they sat Mr. Musa down, neighbors came out of their house with clothes, blankets, and socks for Mr. and Mrs. Musa and Chris. Other neighbors bought umbrellas and actually stood over the Musa family to shield them from the falling snow and rain. What help? As they sat Mr. Musa down, there were many friends that came to their help. Childhood friends Darlene Sue Townsend was visiting her mother that night when they heard Chris's helpful scream. Darlene, her mother Donna Calvo, daughter Kelly Townsend, and son Michael San Felice ran down the street to assist in any way they could. Darlene, an experienced EMT, attempted to calm Chris, who was in shock, and treat his hand and his burns. Donna held an umbrella and gave Miss Musa clothes from her own closet. Kelly helped with holding the umbrellas and doing anything that was asked of her. Darlene suffered smoke inhalation as she went into the burning house to further assist. Michael Felice answers Miss Musa's cries for someone to rescue her beloved Bibbs. That's the family cat. Everybody's important. Michael's unselfishness ran into the smoke-filled house and found Bibbs scared and hiding in the living room. The young man, all of 22 years old, 22, risked his health and life to save what others say is just a cat, but a special family member to the Musa family. In addition, Jean's tasked Mr. Musa took him to as many doctor's appointments. Jean also loaned his vehicle to the Musas when they traveled because it's easier for Mr. Musa, who is handicapped, to get in and out of the caravan than their own. Jean will also come and sit with Mr. Musa when Mr. Musa goes to the store or has physical therapy appointments. The Musas affectionately called Jean their guardian angel. Teresa Musa Graham, the Musa's daughter, nominated each of you for this true heroism, and rightfully so. At this time, will the following Good Samaritans please come forward to the podium to join me and the county executive? Mr. Gene Ward, Vanessa Ward, Demetrius Handon, Darlene Sue Townsend, Michael Felice, Donna Cavalo, and Kelly Townsend. Let's give them all a round of applause. The successful cardiac resuscitation at the bowling alley. I wasn't at the bowling alley, but Mr. John Ward was bowling with his league at 6322 Kenilworth Avenue on March 6, 2012. Witnesses stated that Mr. Ward fell flat on his face as people immediately rushed over to assist him. Upon turning over, they noticed blood around his mouth. In addition, Mr. Ward was not breathing. Miss Patricia Glover immediately took control of the situation and started administering CPR to include mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. Ironically, she is trained in CPR and serves as a disaster leader for the American Red Cross. After she started CPR, Ms. Glover was joined by Mr. Ernie Williams, who is a retired X-ray technician of 40 years. Miss Williams and Miss Clover, not Glover, Clover, I got that right now. Clover, alternate doing compressions. An additional onlooker, Miss Marjorie Thomas Barnes, assisted by checking for a pulse while the others performed CPR. Soon thereafter, units from Station 809, which is the engine company, Ambulance 807, and Medic 12 arrived on the scene. The patient was shocked 2 times and had a return of spontaneous circulation. Mr. Ward was then transported on April 23rd. Will the following Good Samaritans please come up to the podium to join me and the county executive for this well-deserved presentation? Patricia Clover, Mr. Ernie Williams, and Miss Marjorie Thomas Barnes. Child Care Center Protector. On April 26, 2012, Jalen Farmer, a security guard at a local child care center in Landover, Maryland, was at his post when a man with no connection to the daycare center entered the facility and asked to use the phone. When the child care provider politely told him no, he angrily retaliated. He severely beat Jalen Farmer in the head and with a baseball bat as Mr. Farmer jumped into action to protect 80 children and 20 employees at the center. Mr. Farmer was taken to the Prince George's Hospital Center for treatment of severe injuries to his head, his face, and his eyes. A very deep laceration to his left eye required 25 to 30 sutures to close the wound, and his right eye was also severely cut. Currently, he has no vision in his right eye and limited vision in his left eye. Once stabilized, he was transferred to the University of Maryland Shock Trauma in Baltimore, Maryland. Upon arrival, he was examined again, and it was determined that he needed emergency surgery to his right eye. He sustained multiple fractures to both eyes and his nose, nerve damage, and a concussion. It was relayed to his family that even while Jalen was profusely bleeding from the head, without hesitation, he continued to sacrifice his life on behalf of all the children and staff at the daycare center. Mr. Farmer, 18 years old, was working as a security guard to save money for college and a car. This remarkable young man has aspirations of attending college, majoring in sports communication, and I believe this determined young man will indeed achieve his dream. Will Jalen Farmer and his mother and grandmother please come forward to the podium?
Thank you all. Hold the three cameras, if you would, please.
On behalf of the county executive, let's just give these heroes an outstanding ovation for their outstanding service. Thank you very much, Mr. Eubanks.
You know, in this society that's just so filled with cynicism and people so concerned for themselves and looking out for themselves, I think this is just absolutely outstanding that we have these people here. These people are heroes. I enjoy LeBron James and RG3 the third as much as anyone, but these are true heroes. You know, I was talking with my son who joined me at work today, Evan, and I said, Evan, when in closing, how do you thank these people? What do you say to these people? And he just looked at me, he said, Dad, the words can't express it. And I just agree, words cannot express how much we thank you as a community, how much the Baker administration thanks you, and of course how much the families of those you helped. Thank you. Well, this has been a great afternoon, and again, I'd like to congratulate all of our recipients. Again, this has been a wonderful program over the years. And beginning next year, we're going to launch sort of a new phase of this awards program. The County Executives Community Service Awards will provide recognition in 5 categories: businesses, faith-based and religious organizations, community volunteers, senior citizens, and youth. Awardees will be recognized in April, which is National Volunteer Month, and more details and nomination forms will soon follow and be available on the county's website. Now, before we end the official part of this celebration for additional pictures and refreshments, I want to thank the committee members for their time and contribution to the program. Edith Chapman, the program coordinator. LaVon Reedy Thomas. Jacqueline Woody. Norma Dorsey. And Christy Lipscomb. And we also appreciate the support of our public safety colleagues who have been very supportive in this awards program, particularly Mark Brady of the Prince George's County Fire Department. And lastly, I want to thank my staff from the Office of Community Relations, various members of the staff who helped out in preparing today's program. Thank you very much. And of course, we have refreshments available. I know it's been warm in here, so everyone, please help yourselves to the refreshments. And if I could get the county executive, Mr. Stanton, and all of the awardees up for one big group photo up here, I'd appreciate it. And thank you so much again for attending, and we'll see you all next year. Thank you.